For landscape photography, a tripod will be an inseparable part of your kit. Personally, if I'm not using a tripod, it almost feels unnatural to go through my normal image capture process. As a landscape photographer, you will end up getting a high-quality tripod. There's simply no other option. But there are a lot of tripods on the market, as well as tripod heads. In the end, if you skimp on your tripod kit, it's even worse than skimping on a camera or a lens. Ultimately, the bottom line is that tripods have a huge effect on the quality of your photos. So when you're looking for a tripod for landscape photography, what are the most important things you should consider? Well, first off is the tripod's material. In the end, you will want a carbon fiber tripod, and this is because carbon fiber is the lightest and strongest material available in tripods today. Also, carbon fiber is very durable, which means that if you use your tripod over several years, it's much less likely to break down. Another feature that matters when you're looking for a tripod is modularity, and this is the ability to swap out or modify features of the tripod depending upon your needs. For example, these tripods allow me to switch out their rubber feet for other options, for example, metal spikes. And I use this feature a lot if I'm taking pictures in icy conditions where I need to dig the tripod into the ice, or even if I'm taking pictures at the beach where I need to push the tripod into the sand so that the waves don't move it too much during the exposure. Another modular feature of some tripods is the ability to add or remove a center column. Now this is a useful feature because you might want to remove the center column and get more stability in your tripod, or add a center column if you need more height. Ultimately, by choosing a modular tripod, you can customize it towards your needs. Along the same lines, another feature that really matters for landscape photography is the ability to clean your tripod. Now some tripods on the market can't be taken apart very easily or at all to be cleaned, while others are built for that purpose. And this is crucial because if you take pictures in sandy conditions or in salt water, your tripod will degrade over time. The ability to take it apart and clean it could be the difference between 5 years of use and 50 years of use on the same tripod. Now it's not as easy as just looking at these features and choosing a tripod that way. For example, not all carbon fiber tripods are built equal. Some might have plastic bits connecting their different segments, while others could just be manufactured very cheaply. A good carbon fiber tripod will be built to last. And the rule of thumb here is just that you get what you pay for. Unfortunately, there are no shortcuts when you're buying a tripod, and the best of the best can be somewhat expensive. While the quality of your tripod isn't something that you can skimp on, you still do have some decisions to make. For example, there's a big difference between lighter weight tripods that are smaller versus heavier tripods that might be more stable. Even if both of them are high quality tripods, you'll have to choose which one fits better for your needs. If you do a lot of overseas travel and you need your tripod to pack as small as possible, you should definitely consider investing in a travel version. At the same time, if you're doing more car travel and you're not going on as long of a hike, then you might prefer something that's larger and more stable. If you're trying to figure out whether a particular tripod is sturdy enough for landscape photography, it's not enough just to look at it or even to handle it. What you need to do is go outside on a windy day and run some tests. Put the tripod up at its highest height, use a camera with a telephoto or a medium lens on it, and then zoom in to 100% magnification in live view. If you look back at the live view screen and you see shaking, that means that your tripod isn't sturdy enough for critical landscape photography work. If you don't have the actual tripod in front of you to test, it's not something that you should worry about. Just make sure that you purchase a high-end, well-respected tripod, and then do these tests when you receive it. If it doesn't perform to your standards, you might want to send it in and replace it with a sturdier model. If you're just starting out in landscape photography, it might seem crazy to spend $600, $800, or even $1,000 on a single tripod. And at first, you might not need to spend this much. But what you need to avoid is incrementally upgrading your tripod. If you spend $50 on a tripod, and then $100, $200, $400, and then finally $1,000, you'll waste a lot of money along the way. Instead, what I would recommend is to buy a low-end tripod at first, something that's maybe $150. Then, if you realize that landscape photography isn't for you, you've just saved yourself a lot of money. But if you keep running into the problems with that tripod and reaching its limits, then you'll realize that a higher-end tripod is what you need to buy. And if that's the case, skip everything in the middle. They'll also disappoint you, and in the end, you'll purchase one of the highest-end tripods anyway. As a landscape photographer, you'll end up upgrading your cameras over time, and you may cycle through your lens kits as well. But a good tripod is a long-term purchase that's here to stay. Ultimately, more than any other piece of camera equipment, a tripod is an investment, and if you pick a good one, then you won't be disappointed. When it comes to tripod heads, there are a lot of good options on the market, and luckily you don't need to spend as much as you would to get a good tripod. So let's talk about some of the most important considerations in a little bit more detail. When you're looking through options on the market for tripod heads, you could find some that cost thousands of dollars, and these are very specialized tools that you probably wouldn't need. But at the same time, you can't skimp on the quality of your tripod head. If you do, then there's no reason to even get a high-end tripod in the first place. Your results simply won't be very good. When you're selecting a tripod head, keep in mind that you're not only buying the head itself, you're also buying into an entire system. And that can include accessories like panoramic bases or also different clamps. And these might not be cross-compatible with different brands. Ultimately, it's a good idea to have an eye towards the future. You don't want to waste your money on a brand that doesn't have the accessories that you might need somewhere down the road. When you're looking at the market, you may find a few good options for high-end tripods, but you'll find even more for high-end tripod heads. Specifically, brands like Really Right Stuff, Markins, Kirk, Arca Swiss, and a number of others all have extremely high-quality products. And along with that, there are also much more expensive tripod heads that you can get that are very specialized tools. When you're going through these different brands, pay attention to what you're buying. Personally, I use Really Right Stuff tripod heads because they're part of a well-established system with a lot of good accessories, but a number of other brands are similar. What you need to avoid is buying into a brand that only has a couple of options on the market and a limited number of accessories. When you're actually attaching your camera to the tripod head, it helps to go with the most popular and by now the industry standard option of the Arca Swiss quick release system. Now this system is just an easy way to put your camera or other accessories directly on top of a tripod head. For example, all four of these heads, even though they're from completely different manufacturers, are each compatible with the Arca Swiss system. And this is very helpful because it opens up a wide range of accessories that I can use with every single one of these heads. Say that I wanted to invest in a tripod head system from scratch. For example, something like this unique ball, which has a number of useful features for landscape photography. But maybe I want to use it for panoramas. If that's the case, I would look up to see whether I can attach a panoramic clamp to the top of the ball head. And in this case I can. As you can see, it's attached right now. However, it didn't come this way. Initially there was a lever release clamp instead, which is the same type of release clamp that I have on this Really Right Stuff tripod head. The benefit of systems like these is that you can change out the quick release head for different options, maybe a panoramic head, a twist release head, or a clamp release. The end result is that you have as much flexibility as possible. In terms of the type of tripod head that you buy, by far the most common option on the market is the ball head. Now ball heads are popular for a number of reasons. On one hand, they're just easy to use, but more importantly, there are so many options on the market that you can almost always pick one that works perfectly for your needs. For example, this is a large ball head, the unique ball. There's also medium-sized options and even very tiny ball heads like the one on this miniature tripod. However, ball heads don't do everything perfectly. It's difficult to lock down your framing precisely because if the ball moves just by a millimeter or so, your composition could be slightly different. That's why other types of heads exist. For example, this geared head by Arca Swiss. Now this head is great for precise framing because it lets you twist a gear that moves the camera slowly. But it's a large, expensive, heavy head that most landscape photographers won't end up purchasing. At the end of the day, it's all about choosing a system that gives you room in the future. Just look at the options that you have, compare a few different brands, and you'll find the right tripod head for you. When you're comparing a good, reliable tripod head against one that's not as good, you'll notice some clear differences. For example, a bad tripod head might sag as you're trying to compose a photo. You might be out with a telephoto lens and you frame your composition perfectly, but after you lock down your tripod, the composition dips slightly. This could be even worse if it continues to dip lower and lower, even as you take the photo. Then you might end up with the composition that you didn't want and a blurry photo at the same time. A good ball head, though, would lock in place and it would stay there throughout the entire exposure. Now, this isn't the only difference between a good and a bad ball head. A bad ball head might break over time, it could become difficult to use or difficult to service, while a good ball head will last a while. Personally, when I was just starting out in landscape photography, I made a number of bad decisions. I bought a few cheap ball heads as well as a low-end geared head that cost me a lot of frustration and blurry photos in the field. Instead, I should have listened to the advice of people who told me to get a good head from the beginning. Ideally, just like tripods, you wouldn't want to incrementally upgrade your tripod head. Also, make sure to prepare for the future. If you're planning to get a larger camera or a heavier lens, you have to know that your ball head will be able to support the weight. Earlier, I talked about the fact that you can get different accessories for your tripod heads, and right now I have two in my hand. These are both from Really Right Stuff, which, as an established brand, has hundreds of different accessories available on the market. Here, if I took this slider and I put it right on the panoramic clamp, and then just twist a little, I have a basic setup for panorama photography. And the cool thing here is that I can take this exact setup and just mount it on my existing ball head. This is just one of many accessories too. The idea is that you can pick and choose based upon your specific needs. As you can see, everything about tripods is important. A lot of landscape photographers end up buying high-end cameras and lenses, but they cheap out on their tripods and their photos suffer as a result. So in the end, always buy a good solid tripod that meets your needs, and you'll have an investment that lasts a lifetime.